cars, guns, and money.
Not true. Okay, Mike, let us transition to our fourth topic of the day. So we've talked about James Harden, we talked about college sports, we talked about baseball and Cleveland Indians, and now, Mike, we rarely get to talk about boxing. So a couple weeks back, I know you and I were having a lot of fun with this late at night on that, I think it was a Saturday, with the Mike Tyson-Roy Jones Jr. fight. Everyone was all excited about that fight. And the undercard had a fight that maybe is now more memorable now looking back. That's the Nate Robinson-Jake Paul fight. So Nate Robinson, I know very well. He was a New York Knick for many years, won the slam dunk contest. He's a complete character. He was in, what was that movie with Shaq? What was that movie? I'm going to forget. Oh, Uncle Drew. Uncle Drew. He was a character named
Kyrie Irving.
It's Kyrie Irving.
It's Kyrie Irving's movie.
Kyrie Irving could be an enemy of the podcast because we here believe that the earth is round and Kyrie Irving is not of that belief.
In that sense, then Kyrie is an enemy of everybody on the planet.
You know what? He's actually, we can have a slight change. He's actually an enemy of the media. This past week, Kyrie Irving called all media pawns, and he doesn't listen to pawns. Mike, I'm an amateur chess player over here. I love pawns. Okay, so don't be hating on pawns, Kyrie Irving. So maybe
I got my chess set behind me here.
Listen, if Kyrie Irving is not a fan of pawns, okay, maybe I'm not a fan of Kyrie Irving. Maybe Kyrie Irving should be an enemy of this podcast. So anyway, but I don't know how exactly we got there. But anyway, so Nate Robinson, who was in the Uncle Drew movie, he was Boots. He was like an old man. It was really cool. He gets KO'd from Jake Paul, and people are talking about that KO because the Tyson-Roy Jones Jr. fight, it was a little, the fix was in. They weren't going to hit each other in the face, all that fun stuff. So Jake Paul becomes the big winner from that debate. So we were all kind of speculating on who Jake Paul is going to fight next. And now people that maybe don't know Jake is famous from YouTube fame. I think him and his brother were a Vine fame before that. But Jake is really famous because his older brother Logan is famous. And Logan is also a boxer in his own right. Obviously, they've had a very limited amount of professional fights. But what Logan Paul did was kind of capitalize on the moment. So Logan Paul has who did he lose to, Mike? He lost to this guy, KSI.
KSI. He's a British YouTuber.
So when you lose to another YouTuber, like, what is that like? Do you just have to like fade into oblivion? Like, what's the punishment?
Well, I don't know. I mean, YouTube boxing is the newest thing. I mean,
I'm kind of digging it right now. I'm kind of into it.
Well, here's the thing. Boxing definitely was on its way down. I mean, when Floyd going out, there's been a lot less coverage of boxing, and rightfully so. They've brought a lot of hype to it. YouTube is on a pretty high trajectory right now, and you've got these 20-something-year-old guys that are interested in training, and they're not going to lie. I did not want Jake Paul to beat Nate Robinson. I was really hoping that Nate Robinson could go into that ring with a little bit more than just some street fight jump at him tactics. But Jake Paul actually,
there's a spark plug in there.
He's kryptonite. I don't know. The biggest thing with like Logan and Jake have been training. They've been training for the last couple of years, and they look decent. I don't want to say they're good fighters, but they've been training and they know a little bit what they're doing in the ring. It makes it a little more exciting. So
yeah, I mean, well, I want to toss you this because I want to make sure we hit the topic that Mike, and you brought this topic up, so I want to give you all the credit where it's due. The reason we bring this up, Logan Paul following the Jake Paul fight, right? And Jake Paul, sorry to Mike, Jake Paul was victorious. He got a KO. I think it was round 2. Essentially what we have is a situation where Jake Paul is now a very marketable man that can sell a fight, whether he's going to be the undercard or main card. He can sell a fight. So Mike Tyson is now going to have a rematch with Vander Holyfield. They're going to have a lot of these fights in the near future. So Jake Paul is trying to figure out his next fight. We'll talk about this. He was trying to entice Conor McGregor. And all of a sudden, the other Paul brother, Logan Paul, with a loss to his name, lands the biggest fight that anybody could possibly imagine for a YouTuber with the best boxer of all time. If you just, I don't think I'm saying anything so controversial. And that's Floyd Mayweather. So Floyd Mayweather has agreed when Nate fought Jake Paul, it was a real sanctioned professional boxing match. The Floyd Logan fight is going to be an exhibition. So that's closer to what we saw with Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. So Mike, let me toss it to you because this is the fun conversation you and I had offline. But we are in a world where the money is really insane for YouTube celebrity boxers. So I know you dug into this a little bit. What are you hearing and what are you reading on the terms of the Floyd Mayweather fight And then separately, what's being talked about for potential McGregor purse and what numbers are being floated out?
Yeah, so I don't even know where this fight came out of. It was, I mean, you have Jake Paul getting all of this press coverage with what was going on with the Tyson fight and getting a lot of, I don't even know. I mean, I wasn't expecting Nate Robinson to win, so it's whatever. I think I was more excited to see Mike Tyson because I didn't grow up watching Mike Tyson. So that happens. And then all of a sudden we see that now come, I believe it's February 20th of 2021. Yeah. We have Logan Paul fighting Floyd Mayweather. This blew my mind.
But maybe Jake, because Jake is now a big name. Logan Paul has not had that equivalent of a boxing match on that type of a card.
You're correct. But here's the thing we were just talking about, right? You asked about YouTube boxers fighting YouTube boxers. That's pretty much all it's been, right? These younger, inexperienced boxers just fighting for YouTube views. And then they started calling out actual fighters. They actually wanted to fight, trained killers, if you will, that could do some serious damage to them. And Logan, there's a possibility that Jake Paul probably helped, but I think Logan has been marketing himself and trying to get into the actual boxing world, and he just took this route instead. But I wholeheartedly believe that he had already had contact with the Mayweather crew, his management, whatever, to try to set up some fight. I don't know if it's public. I saw it on social media. You're talking about money. That's the biggest thing. I think up front, Floyd Mayweather is going to be guaranteed $5 million, and then he gets, I think, 50% of the pay-per-view, and then Logan Paul gets something like $250,000 to $275,000 up front, and he'll get 5% of the pay-per-view. So Logan's not that's a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, like that's money, but Logan's not necessarily doing it for the money, but he's definitely doing it for the fame, the growth that he's going to have. But Logan comes in, he's got 22.6 million followers on YouTube. That's a lot. I mean, that's for YouTube, that's a really good amount. Logan got infamous from some negative things that he's done in his past, but he's really taken to this boxing world and he's gone full force. You're right. Jake Paul definitely probably helped because Mayweather finally saw, he's like, oh, like a YouTube boxer actually can bring in views. And he's like, that happened with Tyson. And I imagine Mayweather has a big ego. He's like, I can bring in more views than Tyson. So he's like, why don't I do it? And he's got nothing to lose. It's an exhibition.
Hold on. He's got a lot to lose, Mike. You and I were just talking about him as being the greatest boxer of all time. It doesn't matter, right, if it's an exhibition or not. If he loses to Logan Paul, right, and I looked at the pictures. I mean, you just look at Jake and Nate Robinson. Jake is much bigger than Nate Robinson. So, and obviously, neither of them are really like professional boxers, but whatever. You look at Logan next to Floyd, Logan's much bigger. So, I mean, it's not like unheard of, but obviously Floyd is the best boxer of all time. He's not going to get in the ring with someone like that. I know you and I have joked, like there was a wrestling event, WWE event way back when the Big Show fought Floyd Mayweather. Big Show has actually got a decent Netflix show. I don't know if you've checked that out recently.
I have not.
I'm a wealth of knowledge when it comes to shows. So you did point out one thing, which I did want to touch on. So, I guess the long and short of the money, there's a lot of money being talked about, right? And we didn't necessarily bring it up, but like there's 50 million potentially being on the table for Conor McGregor for this Jake Paul fight. The Logan Paul fight, it's 5 million, I guess, is the number that's being talked about upfront for Floyd. And then like six figure, it's like a $200,000 payment for Logan Paul. I mean, Mike, I first heard about Logan Paul when I had never heard of him before. I mean, I understood YouTubers were a thing. The man took a video of a dead body in the suicide forest. Like, that's not just like like an infamous, like this is someone that in the recent history of YouTube was like a complete, like untouchable. He would lost all of his sponsorships. There were followers. Parents weren't allowing people to watch Logan Paul. And I remember I'm like, oh, he's got a brother. It's interesting. Jake Paul, I guess, like, well, that's the end. We heard of Logan Paul. His career's over. So he goes from that on the edge of relevance, right? Like being relevant for the wrong reasons to now he's fighting Floyd Mayweather. And mind you, Mike, he's fighting Floyd Mayweather because his brother beat Nate Robinson, who was an absolute nobody and has never had a professional boxing match in his life. The roller coaster of Logan Paul's career will go down in history. And these guys are now just like rolling in the cash for these crazy fights. I mean, it just, I don't know. I'm on the one hand, shocked and appalled. On the other hand, I'm just really impressed that they just conjured up this market out of nowhere. And they've been, I knew that they were in the boxing space for a number of years. And now all of a sudden, this is where you want to be, in the celebrity boxing arena. I remember years ago, like Dustin Diamond Screech, like fought someone on Celebrity Boxing from Saved by the Bell. And he got like his, I think Tanya Harding was on the show. Like that was just a joke show for like, for a one-time deal, which made no money. This is like a legitimate event. So I don't know. I mean, I give my hat off to the entrepreneurs behind what they're doing.
No, you're definitely right. And Logan has an incredible roller coaster of what's happening. And
I know that you're a Logan Paul fan, so I'm sorry I had to bring that up. I know he's like your idol in life, but I feel like I had to tell our listeners his real story.
No, completely the opposite.
You were just listening to his podcast, Mike. So I mean, like
only because I wanted to see what he
had to say for research
about his brother. Only for research. That's right. I'm research based. No, I have to push back about the only reason Floyd did it was because of Jake Paul. I think it helps, but I'm not 100% sold on that. But you're right. Logan Paul has gone through, I don't even know, up and down more than anybody, but they're bringing in money. They're bringing in money, and that's what Floyd wants. It's Floyd money Mayweather. That's you put a check in front of him, which brings me to what's happening with Conor McGregor. Jake Paul is calling out Conor McGregor in a very Conor McGregor-esque way, right? When McGregor was fighting Khabib, he went after his wife. I think he called his wife a towel. He like commented on a picture of their like marriage, and in their culture, the wife's face could not be shown. And McGregor was like, bro, your wife's a towel. Like McGregor went after his father, his family, his religion. McGregor does this too. McGregor's the villain of the UFC. So Jake Paul, in a very McGregor-esque way, posts a video, smoking a cigar, drinking whiskey, with an Irish flag draped around him, calls out McGregor. That's got to get McGregor's attention. And then he's got a $50 million check sitting next to his Lamborghini. Like, I don't know how much more, mind you, Conor McGregor also just bought a Lamborghini yacht. The Lamborghini just made like a certain number of yachts, and Conor McGregor bought one. So like,
unbeknownst to me, I've never heard of that.
McGregor knows a good Lamborghini. Regardless, $50 million. I don't know where this money is coming from. You're talking about marketing, like what the Paul brothers are doing. And I only watched Impulsive, which is a pretty big podcast. They get a good amount of views.
But this was only the first time you've ever listened to it. Okay, go ahead.
First time I've ever listened to it, besides clips of random guests.
Okay, James Harden. Continue.
So Logan was saying to Jake, like, you can't fight Conor McGregor because he'll actually kill you. Like, he's a legitimate, like, killer that, like, if he sees you in the street, he'll kill you. But then he's turning around and he's fighting Mayweather, who's the greatest boxer of all time. And you're right. Logan is, I think, 6'2", 200, and Mayweather is 5'8", maybe 150. But Mayweather's a defensive boxer, so he won't even allow Logan to touch him if he has his way. I mean, that's exactly what happened with McGregor. McGregor had a much greater reach in that fight, and he held his own a little bit, but McGregor couldn't do anything really because he's not the best boxer of all time. But now Jake is taunting McGregor. He only follows McGregor's fiance on Instagram. Then he goes after Dylan Dennis, throwing water balloons and toilet paper, who's another UFC fighter who's kind of in lines with McGregor, cussing at him, takes a screenshot of the toilet paper hitting him in the face, posting it as his picture on Instagram, and then following Dylan Dennis's girlfriend. So now he's...
Can we just because I want to make sure people understand like the hilarity in this. And, for everyone that follows, Mike and I Mike, obviously, we should mention, runs the Conic Detrimental account. We have a lot of fun with wrestling stuff. What Jake Paul is doing is ultimate heel wrestling maneuvers. And I want to point out, because Mike and I were talking about this last night, like, if you go to Logan or Jake Paul's Instagram account, he's following two people, right? Mike, tell me if I'm wrong. He's following Dylan Dennis and Dylan Dennis's girlfriend.
No, Dylan Dennis's girlfriend and Conor McGregor's fiance.
Okay, so he's following Dylan Dennis's girlfriend and Conor McGregor's fiance, and his picture is no longer himself. It is a picture of Dylan Dennis getting hit in the face with toilet paper that he was throwing in the viral video. Do I have all that right?
That's correct. Yes.
This is ultimate heel maneuver. And guess what? Guess what's sitting at the edge of this? Conor McGregor, who separately, and we've talked about why Conor's a big heel. Conor is the ultimate promoter. And not so long ago, Conor was promoting this ultimate fight, the crossover between two worlds, Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor, which I watched. I bought the pay-per-view, which I never do. And it was a spectacle. I don't really know if it was a good fight. Mayweather let him hang around for a little bit, but those guys made a ton of money. And that's Conor's real world at this point. He hasn't really gone full force back into the UFC because he's kind of said to himself, hey, I can make boxing money, which for no apparent reason is much more than UFC money. But I don't know. It's an interesting world that we've fallen into, Mike. I don't know. So you have anything to add on this one, Mike, before we go to our final topic?
Well, just the one thing, as we currently sit, like you said, it's Wednesday, December 16th. McGregor has not responded. McGregor has not said anything. The only person that has responded is Dana White, who, quote unquote, owns McGregor, right? He makes the fights for UFC. He's the one who has to approve everything. And he said there's zero chance. He said this before, and he said it again. There's zero chance that Jake Paul fights Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is about to fight Dustin Poirier coming. I don't know exactly the date. So he's got other fights that he's worried about. But it's very interesting. And you bring up the Mayweather fight that McGregor did, but you got to think about Khabib. Remember when he threw the chair at Khabib's bus and he cracked the window or the ladder or whatever he threw? Like I said, Jake Paul is doing exactly
it was like a dolly. It was like a little yeah.
So if you want to talk about marketing, you might think that this is stupid, which it looks very stupid. It's exactly what McGregor has done in the past. So it's very funny, and I think Jake he's got the views. He's got 20 million followers on YouTube as well. He's got the people that are behind him, that he can get enough people behind this. Basically, it was just kind of here's everything, balls in your court, Dana White and Conor McGregor. But Dana White's not having it. Also, mind you, just a little tidbit, he also called Dana White the Alaskan bullworm, which if you're a SpongeBob fan, I think that's hilarious.
The Alaskan bullworm. I'm going to have to look that up. You got me. I know who Pinhead Larry is, and I know who Miss Puff is, but the Alaskan bullworm.
If you are listening to this right now, just look up Dana White, Alaskan bullworm. You'll have a lot of fun with the memes, if you want to call them memes.
He does look like the Alaskan bullworm. Oh, whoa. Okay then. Okay, so on that note, I think that's a good place to end that fourth topic. There's obviously a lot of good material in there, and we go into depth on the Paul brothers topic. Obviously, Mike and I are insinuating that this is not the last you're going to hear of celebrity boxing, and I gather there have been very little notes, legal scholarship written on the legal and the negotiation tactics behind celebrity boxing, and maybe there's some ethical issues too, whether you can have an exhibition fight. I know I placed money on the Tyson Roy Jones Jr. fight, which was I didn't mention on the podcast, but I had bet on who will bleed first, which I thought was an interesting prop to bet on, and that bet was actually canceled. Canceled means it was nullified because it came out that was an exhibition. I guess one of the stipulations was that they were not going to fight as hard. So interesting, just something to be mindful of, especially as sports betting continues to get legalization across the country.